Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're plunging into a topic that often lurks just beneath the surface, really, impacting real lives in these profound, often devastating ways. We're talking about the chilling reality of what people often call conversion therapies.
Mm.
It's something, a lot of people assume is maybe a thing of the past or happens somewhere else far away. But the sources we've looked at,
Mm.
they show a persistent, painful present right here, right now.
Yeah, and our mission today is really to unpack the full scope,
Mm.
go beyond the headlines, understand what's actually happening behind closed doors,
Mm.
and also explore the complex legal and political side of things surrounding these tortures.
Mm-hmm.
And for this deep dive, we're drawing on some really powerful sources. There's a crucial interview with Saú Castro. He's a jurist, an activist, basically a hammer in the fight against these practices in Spain. And also Savi Martínez, a survivor who very bravely shares his personal story. A 4.5-year ordeal. Their insights are just invaluable, especially drawing from that interview Edu Rubiño did on Imperio Woke. You get Saú's sharp legal mind combined with Savi's raw firsthand account. It paints a vivid picture. The abuse, the struggle for justice, it's all there.
So let's start with that term itself, conversion therapy, because as our sources make incredibly clear, it's wrong. It's a misnomer. These aren't therapies at all, are there? What's the real nature here?
Right. The key thing to grasp is that these are pseudotherapies or, mal-called therapies. There's absolutely zero scientific basis, none. In fact, international human rights law uses the specific term ecocide.
Ecocide. Okay, what does that stand for?
It stands for efforts to change sexual orientation, identity, or expression of gender. And they use that term quite deliberately, you see, to avoid giving any legitimacy, to avoid that deceptive word therapy, because what these practices are, well, they're tortures, plain and simple.
Tortures. It's a strong word, but based on the intent, it feels justified. It's not just about converting an identity, is it? What's the real goal?
Exactly. You've hit it. The true goal isn't just switching someone, from gay to straight or trans to cis. It's about annulment, erasure.
Yeah.
It's about erasing that person's authentic self, making them disappear from who they are.
Wow. Annulment. So what does that erasure actually look like? I mean, for the person going through it, what's the day-to-day reality?
Well, for that, Savi Martinez's story is just incredibly powerful
Mm-hmm.
and brave. His journey into this started when he was really vulnerable, just 18.
Yeah, and the entry point sounds familiar, sadly. Catholic family background, specifically the neo-catechumenal way, which is quite conservative, and crucially, lacking any LGBTQ plus references in his life.
Maybe even susceptible.
Gravely susceptible to manipulation. A priest then referred his family to something called a COVI, a family orientation center in Valencia, run by a couple, Federico Millet and Isabella Cruz.
Okay, so they get him there, and then what? The diagnosis comes in. And that's where the pseudoscience really kicks in, designed to rationalize it all. Savi's homosexuality wasn't framed as, who he was. It was a manifestation of emotional wounds, childhood wounds, specifically a lack of
A
masculinity.
lack of masculinity, right. And our sources mention this underlying theory based on people like Pena and Richard Cohen's book, How to Heal Homosexuality.
Yeah.
They identify, 11 areas of these supposed wounds? Things like an overprotective father, or being too tall, or too fat. It seems like they could find a wound in anyone.
Oh, absolutely. It's designed precisely for that. Find a reason, any reason. And then there's this concept they use, projection towards the same sex, PMS, they call it.
PMS, okay.
The idea is you're not really attracted to the same sex. You're just seeking the masculinity you supposedly lack.
Right.
Projecting onto others to find it in them.
Right, projecting. So once they've given this diagnosis, what did Savi's life become? It wasn't just talk therapy, clearly.
Oh, not at all. It was a complete takeover.
Wait,
A strict, pervasive regimen, weekly, sometimes bi-weekly sessions, worksheets he had to fill out, and absolute control over everything. His studies, who his friends were, who he could even talk to, total control.
And the isolation, that really jumped out from the sources, being told to cut off his mother, his sisters, female friends.
Explicitly,
Yeah.
because they were feminine influences, holding him back from finding his true masculinity. It's incredibly damaging, just dismantling a person's entire support system.
Yeah.
And then there was the masturbatory control, a basic rule, they called it. Any sexual thought, any act,
Yeah.
it was a fall, treated like an addiction, something to be confessed.
And not just confessed privately, right? The sources detail this practice,
Yeah.
forcing him to confess to his parents, even acting out scenes.
Yes, deeply disturbing.
Right.
Reconstructing scenes in front of them. The purpose, utter humiliation. Savi himself calls it torture, malpractice. And he's absolutely right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And after 2 years of that, it actually got worse. He was sent somewhere else.
It escalated, yeah. He was sent away for 6 months to Ruiloba in Cantabria. This place was the Casa Madre, the headquarters of an organization called Es Posible la Esperanza, EPE, founded by a figure called Padre Santiago.
And what happened there? The sources mentioned masculinization efforts.
Yeah, it became much more physical, more enforced. They shaved his head, made him wear loose clothing. Tight pants were provocative, apparently. Forced physical labor, gardening, chopping wood, like acting like a lumberjack to build masculinity.
Good groove. And the medication aspect, that's truly shocking.
It really is. 80%, 80% of the residents there, including minors, kids, were medicated by this psychiatrist, Antonio Julian Porras, an ex-homosexual himself. And he'd apparently diagnosed people after just 5-minute sessions.
5 minutes.
Savi, thankfully, refused the medication. Stood his ground on that.
It just sounds like a nightmare. And it's in Ruiloba that Savi met Daniela, a trans girl. Her story is just heartbreaking.
Utterly devastating.
Yeah.
Danielle was forced to use her dead name, Juan. She was also medicated. Savi saw her self-harming. And tragically, after she managed to escape Ruiloba, she later died by suicide.
Oh, no.
And what makes it even more grotesque? Padre Santiago, the founder, he allegedly used her funeral, used it as a platform for transphobic hate speech, claiming her death was, quote, another example of the dark hand of the collective, implying LGBTQ plus people are somehow doomed to be unhappy, just exploiting a tragedy.
Yeah, vile. And Saú Castro is still fighting for her, to respect her memory, her gender.
He is, working with Euphoria Familias Transaliadas, a trans family support group. The initial complaints were archived, believe it or not, but the fight continues. It's pending now at the Tribunal Superior de Justicia. It just shows the long, hard struggle for any kind of justice, even after death.
Absolutely. And the impact on Savi himself, the aftermath.
Profound and lasting. His mental health completely crumbled. Anxiety, stress, insomnia. He even had self-harm ideation. That's what finally led to his escape. Thankfully, he had help. His partner, his parents, who were apparently scandalized when they understood the reality, and a psychologist.
But escaping doesn't just erase it, does it? The sources talk about the sequelae, the lingering scars.
No, it stays with you. Savi talks about difficulty forming healthy relationships afterwards, engaging in risky behaviors. And even years later, he found it hard to simply say the words, my boyfriend. That's how deep this stuff goes. It rewires you in terrible ways, affects the most basic parts of life.
Savi's story is so incredibly powerful and personal, but so Castro's work. It shows this isn't isolated, right? It's part of a much bigger picture of abuse across Spain. What's the sort of environment Saú is working in?
Saú Castro is, well, he's described as heroic, and it fits. He's a jurist fighting LGBT phobia, often pro bono, meaning for free, because there's just a shocking lack of legal support for victims. And he sees a huge range of cases, which really shows how widespread these problems are.
And it's not just conversion therapies, is it? The sources mention something really chilling, the Grindr serial killer case.
Yes, absolutely. This is where it gets really interesting and terrifying. This was an assassin targeting gay men through dating apps, using a specific chokehold, the Matalian, that left no visible marks.
No marks. So initially...
And initially, the deaths were ruled as natural. Can you imagine? It was Saú's intervention, working with the GU Association. They support LGBT phobia victims. That was critical. They got the cases reopened and ultimately secured the first conviction: murder, robbery, identity theft.
Wow. That case alone shows the systemic failures, doesn't it, if no one steps in?
Exactly. It highlights how justice can fail marginalized groups. And Saú brings that same dedication, that same fight against systemic failure, to his work on conversion therapies, because they're part of this broader landscape of abuse. It's not just one group doing this.
Right. So who are the perpetrators? Our sources mention a variety, religious institutions, obviously.
Yes. Beyond the Alcalá bishopric case, which Saú also handled, you have Padre Santiago's EPE, where Savi was. Then there's Verdad y Libertad in Granada, led by retired pediatrician Miguel Ángel Sánchez Cordón.
Verdad y Libertad. What kind of practices went on there? Some sounded really bizarre.
Extremely bizarre. Our sources detail things like Maria cycles, that's 270 days of forced, absolute chastity, rituals like burning the ashes of your personality, group nudity sessions meant for desexualization.
Group nudity?
Yeah, but get this. The leader, Sánchez Cordón, apparently remained clothed, which raises, serious questions about his motivations, potential sexual undertones, and then these biodynamic exercises like screaming your father's name while you're chopping wood, all aimed at dismantling identity.
It's just wild. And it wasn't only these formal groups, recruitment in schools.
Right, in Alaquas, Valencia. That same teacher, Federico Mulet, who first saw Savi, he reportedly would harass or target kids he saw as effeminate, target them for referral. There were even allegations, claims that the Association of Catholic Schools of Valencia told schools to make lists of effeminate students to redirect.
Lists. Okay. And it goes beyond religious figures, too, to sort of pseudo-professionals.
Definitely. There's a case mentioned in Nova Moral de la Mata. A psychologist and a communicator, neither with specific training for this, claiming homosexuality was an illness caused by negative sexual energy.
Negative sexual energy. And their cure.
Their proposed healing, actual sex with the therapist, or simulated group sex sessions. It's predatory. Then there's Elena Lorenzo in Madrid, a coach, advertising on Grindr, of all places.
Advertising on Grindr to cure gay behavior?
Exactly. She was sanctioned by the authorities in Madrid. But, and this is crucial, the fine got overturned. Why? Administrative errors, mistakes in the process.
So she got away with it because of paperwork.
Basically, yes. And it perfectly highlights how easily these people can slip through the cracks, how ineffective the current system often is.
And then there are even more extreme cases, like exorcisms.
Yeah, the sources mention an imam in northern Spain performed an exorcism on a trans woman, physically assaulted her, trying to beat the demon out of her that supposedly made her trans. It shows this violence cuts across different beliefs, different contexts.
And just to round out this picture of impunity, Cage International in Castilla-La Mancha.
Right, described as like an Alcoholics Anonymous for homosexuals, operating in 4 different bishoprics, and for 2 years, no administrative action taken, nothing.
So all these cases, they paint a picture of diverse abuses, but also widespread impunity. Which brings us right to the legal mess. Why is it so hard to stop this in Spain? What's the core problem?
The core problem lies in the legal framework itself. It's
Okay.
unique. So under the 2023 ley trans, these conversion therapies, they are illegal. That's clear.
Yeah.
But, and this is the key point, they are not a crime.
Okay, illegal but not a crime. What does that mean in practice?
It means they're treated as administrative infractions. Like getting a parking ticket, basically. Subject to fines, yes, up to $120,000 MAU. But it's not a criminal offense, no prison time.
Is to fine. So what are the weaknesses of relying only on administrative sanctions? Why isn't it stopping people?
Well, there are several big problems. First, enforcement is totally arbitrary. It depends on political will. Does the regional government want to pursue this? Victims have no right to even start the process or be involved.
No right to participate.
None. And think about this. Our sources say that in Madrid, where these practices are known to occur, not one single sanction has actually been imposed since 2016, despite them being illegal.
Since 2016, not one fine.
Not one successfully imposed fine, which tells you a lot about the effectiveness.
And evidence gathering must be a nightmare, right? If it's all happening privately.
Exactly. Administrative bodies don't have the power of a judge. They can't order searches. They can't seize materials easily. So how do you prove what's happening behind closed doors in these very secretive environments? It's almost impossible. Plus, public administrations often just don't have the specialized staff or the time for these really complex investigations.
That Elena Lorenzo case you mentioned earlier, the coach advertising on Grindr, that really sums it up, doesn't it?
That's a perfect example. The Madrid government tried to sanction her, but messed it up. Bad timing, administrative errors, boom, sanction annulled. She walks away. It shows how ineffective the administrative route is. And our sources even suggest it can be used cynically as a kind of fraudulent investigation going through the motions for political cover without any real intent to punish.
So the current system, it's like a legal black hole. They're illegal, but there's no real accountability.
Pretty much. It fails because of loopholes, lack of political will, and just basic flaws in the system's design.
So because there's no specific crime of conversion therapy, people like Saú Castro have to use these collateral crimes, you call them. What does that involve?
It means trying to prosecute these abuses using other existing laws, things that weren't designed for this specific harm, like crimes against moral integrity, maximum sentence, 2 years prison, or hate crimes, again, max 2 years. And crucially, those sentences don't add up. They're not cumulative.
So very low potential sentences.
Very low. Or they might try things like fraud or professional intrusion if the person isn't qualified, or maybe public health crimes if drugs were involved, like with a psychiatrist.
But the fundamental problem remains. These charges don't really capture the core violence, do they? The identity erasure.
Not at all. That's the crux of it. They don't address the specific, profound harm of trying to erase someone's identity. And judges can look at the conduct and say, well, it's bad, but maybe not grave enough to justify, so, a search warrant, limiting fundamental rights. They can effectively use the existence of the administrative fine as a reason not to pursue criminal charges more aggressively. It
Mm-hmm.
becomes a loophole.
So without specific criminalization, the law just doesn't have the right tools.
Exactly. It lacks the teeth to truly confront this unique form of violence.
Which really makes the case for criminalization itself. Are other places doing this? Is it working?
Yes, and this is fascinating. Many other countries and regions have criminalized these practices. We're talking Malta, Germany, France, Portugal, Canada,
Mm-hmm.
even states within Mexico and Australia.
Mm-hmm.
Over 24 jurisdictions globally, they've put prison sentences on the books.
Right.
So it's clearly viable. It's clearly effective elsewhere.
And what difference does criminalization make, practically speaking, compared to just fines?
It makes a huge difference. First, a real deterrent effect. Prison is a much bigger threat than a fine these people might never pay. Second, it creates a criminal record antecedents, as they say in Spanish law. That matters for repeat offenders. Third, it ensures civil liability is easier to establish. Victims can sue for damages more effectively.
Yeah.
And maybe most importantly, it gives victims legal standing. They become part of the criminal process. They get access to reparations, support systems, things they just don't get with the administrative rate.
Right now, victims are kind of shut out.
Essentially, yes. And the perpetrators. They might face a fine? Maybe. But often, nothing happens. Criminalization changes that dynamic completely.
Okay, so given all that, and the fact other countries are doing it, why the delay in Spain? There was that European Citizen Initiative, right? 1 million signatures for an EU ban. But the sources say that's not very powerful legally.
Right. It's symbolically important but legally limited.
Right.
The EU Commission isn't obliged to act. And even if they propose something, member states like Hungary could potentially veto it. So, yeah, the EU route is slow and uncertain.
Which raises that big question our sources pose. If Europe isn't going to fix this quickly, why isn't Spain stepping up? Spain collected 300,000 signatures demanding action. They supposedly have the votes in parliament. Why not lead the way?
Especially when there is a specific law ready to go. Drafted by No Es Terapia, Savi's group, and supported by parties like Mas Madrid and Compromise. It's based on those successful international models we just talked about.
So the law exists. What's the holdup?
Well, this is where it gets disheartening, according to our sources. They describe a blockade by omission, primarily from the Socialist Party, the PSOE, who are currently leading the government.
A blockade by omission, meaning?
Meaning, despite apparently having the numbers to pass the law with other supporting parties, they've consistently avoided backing this specific bill. Their official line is something like, "We're studying how to criminalize it ourselves." This came after they apparently asked the smaller parties to give them exclusivity on the issue for 8 months, promising they'd handle it.
Yeah.
Nothing concrete.
So they asked for time, didn't act, and now won't support the existing proposal.
That sounds like deliberate stalling. Like a dog in the manger approach, as the source puts it.
That's certainly the interpretation presented. And the consequence of this inaction, legislative paralysis. Nothing moves forward. Precious time in the parliamentary term gets wasted, and all the while, victims remain unprotected. This political maneuvering has real-world consequences for people suffering abuse right now.
Okay, but let's address a potential counter-argument. The sources mention critiques from some on the left about punitivism. Is criminalization really the only answer? Couldn't administrative measures be strengthened? What's the response to that?
It's a fair question, and the response highlighted in our sources is essentially this. Being anti-punitivist shouldn't mean allowing total impunity for violence this severe. The reality check is that administrative measures haven't worked. Remember Madrid, 0 fines imposed since 2016. The system has demonstrably failed to deter or punish.
So the argument is the current non-criminal approach has failed, leaving victims unprotected. Exactly. And the perpetrators.
Yeah.
Often they are deeply convinced they're doing the right thing. They see themselves as martyrs almost. Fines don't touch that conviction. The proposed criminal sentences, importantly, are often in the range of 1 to 4 years. That allows judges flexibility, maybe not prison for a first offense, but it does create that crucial criminal record. It acts as a deterrent against reoffending.
So it's not necessarily about locking everyone up, but about creating real consequences.
Precisely. For those who persist in this harm, who are truly convinced of their mission, the sources argue the penal path is, unfortunately, the only way to protect victims, the only way to combat what they see as a serious social danger. Administrative measures just don't cut it.
Well, as we wrap up this deep dive, it's just It's stark, isn't it? The gap between what many people assume and the reality of these ongoing abuses. When you hear Savi's story, Daniela's story, it's devastating. So what does this all mean for us listening to this? What responsibility do we have when we maybe look away?
I think it means we have to recognize that some kinds of violence just get systematically overlooked, downplayed,
Yeah.
often because they affect a vulnerable minority, and true justice.
Yeah.
It needs more than just saying something is illegal. It needs proactive, effective legal protection. Protection that actually stops the harm. The fight for people like Savi and Daniela, it's clearly not over. And it really hammers home the need for laws that actually deliver justice, not just pay lip service to it.
Yeah. And there's a crucial message, a call to action from Saú Castro and Savi Martinez themselves. If anything we've talked about today has resonated, if you, listening, know of victims or have any information about these practices continuing, please contact Noes Terapia. Their website is www.noesterapia.net.
That's www.noesterapia.net.
That's how this fight continues. By people speaking up, sharing information, it's how we can potentially help end this hidden torture.